So here we are, take two, because as it turns out, when your little sound indicators keep flashing red, that means something. Okay. Hello everyone. I've finally figured out my top 10 albums of 2025. I didn't rush them. I just listened to things enough to be able to determine. And seeing how this is the platform that I can potentially reach the most people with, I'm going to use Lamentations of the Flame Princess to spread metal, because that's originally what Lamentations of the Flame Princess was in the 90s and early 2000s. We're going to do that two ways. At the end of my description of each item in my top 10 here, I will give out a coupon code for either the LOTFP EU or US web store. Links in the description. Each coupon code is usable one time only. So these are 10 separate discounts, 5 for the US web store, 5 for the EU. And the discount will count towards everything. No exceptions. Only one coupon code works per order. And I know some asshole's just going to post the coupon code somewhere, like the Facebook group or something. So for those of you who don't want to sit through my music ramblings, you can probably look out for that. And oh, fuck you. I just have one thing to ask of you. If you use a coupon code that I'm, saying after describing a particular album, listen to the album. At the same time I'm posting this video, I'm making a post over at lotfp.com that'll have all the albums, or at least a song, depending on what's freely available from official channels, linked for your convenience, so you'll have no excuse. You don't have to sit down and concentrate with the headphones on or anything. I'm not asking that, just, play it through. But that's not all. Every so often I order albums from the Transcending Obscurity label out of India. Yeah, India. And they sign bands from all over, and they've got some Finnish bands on the roster, for instance, so, Anyway, when I order CDs from them, they stuff a bunch of Bandcamp codes in each of the CDs. I mean, they're just little slips of paper that list an album and a code to download it free, and yeah, they just stuff them in the CDs. Now, I don't buy or use streaming/downloaded music at all, beyond subscribing to over 100 record labels on YouTube so I know what's coming out. So I just thought I'd give all these codes to you. I have 71 codes that I believe are for full albums or EPs, full releases on the Transcending Obscurity label. I had 72, but I gave one to someone just to make sure it worked. So the next 71 orders I receive, whether they're on the US or EU web stores is not relevant here since I'm going to have to do this sending manually. I'll send you a Bandcamp code for an album download. Each is for a specific release. The codes will be provided as is. As I said, I had someone try out one of these to make sure it worked, but if the label screwed up and duplicate codes got sent out or something, that's out of my control and out of my responsibility. Okay, but as far as I know, they're good. Also, I don't know most of the bands, and I'm not researching them or their members, so if it turns out somebody in one of these bands has a disagreeable opinion about abortion or Israel or Beyonce or whatever, leave me out of it. It's a big old random potluck we're doing here. Free and legit music downloads from bands you've probably never heard of, even if you're a die-hard metalhead, so come get some. When I'm out of codes, I'll leave a comment to that effect underneath the post at the lotfp.com. The post at lotfp.com that I already mentioned. So, before I present my list, just a note about my music tastes. It seems to just always trend towards the weird and bizarre. Go figure how unusual that is for me. It occurred to me some point ago that when I'm listening to a band or an album that's of like a very specific style, it can be cool, it can be great, but when a band is more a blend of different things, or it doesn't use like a pop song structure, I think of it as music in a way that I don't, more easily classifiable bands. The origins of my music taste, and definitely for what my favorites this past year were, turns out aren't actually Black Sabbath or Judas Priest. It's Miles Davis, Bitches Brew specifically, and King Crimson. Bitches Brew begat Weather Report, Return to Forever, and the godly Mahavishnu Orchestra. If you know, you know. And King Crimson I just use as a stand-in, and symbol of that early British prog rock movement that I include bands like Camel and Jethro Tull and Genesis and Wishbone Ash in. But none of those bands did 21st Century Schizoid Man. And I do consider Deep Purple and Uriah Heep to be in the Sabbath region of all these constellations. But as in all good things, the boundaries are fuzzy as fuck, child in time. I had to reverse engineer my taste to find that out. I got seriously into music with death metal and grindcore in the early 90s, but when I got to Cynic, Amorphous, and Opeth later on in the 90s, I was put on, I guess what you can say, my true path. Cathedral should be mentioned in there too, but I wasn't paying any attention to the references they were making in the sleeves for the first couple albums. So, sorry. I have so many prog rock and a good select pile of jazz fusion albums. But to me, they lack, they have all the art and none of the attitude or darkness. And yeah, I've got Universe Zero and Vandergraaf Generator albums. And Comus, I understand there is dark prog. They're lacking a primal energy, so I can appreciate them more than feel them. And that's where the metal comes in. There's something about privileging a screaming guitar that just makes everything better. If all music felt and sounded like the back half of Freebird, the world would be perfect. What can I say? But this is why I consider myself a metalhead, and those times I saw the Flower Kings or Osric Tentacles are just more like amusing anecdotes. So, my top 10 albums of 2025. There's no strict hierarchy here. Yeah, the stuff in the top 3 I like better than the bottom 3. But this time out, there's no clear superior choices like there was last year when the top 2 were the top 2. And you might notice that some obscure record labels are very much overrepresented in my preferences. Of course, record labels are both economic entities, but on the independent level also, they're curators of specific tastes. And yes, I will gravitate more towards some taste groupings than others. Of course. Just like you there, you like role-playing games, I assume. But if you're here, there's something about Lamentations that appeals to you differently than others, even if your appreciation varies book to book. And as I talk about each record, I will play some for you here. This isn't my regular stereo setup, but it is portable. I got a little mini boombox with an exterior speaker because the speakers in the boombox suck. And yeah, the music will be in the background, but I'm sure you're perfectly capable of finding the means to listen to it without my yapping over it if the mood takes you. I just thought it would be weird to talk about music at you without you hearing any of it. But if I edit it into the video sound, I'd spend forever agonizing over just which bits to highlight, and fuck that, and doing the editing. And I don't monetize this channel anyway, so this is fine. So, let's get this started. Yeah, I still haven't figured out how to make changing the CDs go smoother, so you'll just have to deal with that. You got to deal with a lot if you're hanging around these parts of the world, meaning Lamentations, not like Finland. So anyway, oh yes, maybe good if I turn it on. And there we go. Number 10 of 2025. Quadvium, Tetradom, on Agonia Records. This was a day one pre-order for me. They call themselves, quote, Instrumental Progressive Metal Fusion Quartet. An Instrumental Progressive Metal Fusion Quartet, unquote. And that's enough to get my attention. But as a bonus, the band was formed by Steve DiGiorgio and, apologies for the pronunciation, this guy's Dutch, Jaron Paul Thesseling. So I know who these people are, and that helps. Talking about pure, well, that helps for deciding what to buy. That doesn't necessarily mean the music's going to be better, but these guys have not let me down. Talking about purely instrumental music is a bit difficult for me, considering I don't know the language of actual music. It's so much easier to talk about like the narrative of lyrics and how that meshes with the specific sound, but none of that here. I'll just say I've listened to this album tons and tons, and it's the perfect headphone listen, as DiGiorgio's fretless bass is in the left channel and Thesseling's fretless bass, yeah, 2 bass players, are in the right. And with the band being formed by 2 fretless bass players, you can definitely hear the bass on this fucking album, which is not the case with a lot of metal, which is a shame because there is nothing quite like just a pure bass tone, just hitting you right in the propers. And there's 2 of them at once. It's one of those albums that make you feel sophisticated for listening to it. You know, no, I listen to a higher class of metal. So you go to a gig and you see someone wearing a Venom shirt and you get to feel superior to that primitive barbarian, even though chances are you have also listened to Venom before you went to the gig. Seriously though, I do wish there were more instrumental albums in metal. I mean, my #1 of 2024 was an instrumental album. Because while lyrics are sometimes good, and sometimes even great, in most cases we'd be better off not hearing some stoner drunk's thoughts about Satan or gore, or how they felt bad yesterday, or their commentary about politics or economics. And then, you know, the entire sound of the band is warped, arranged is how they'd put it, to highlight and accommodate vocal lines, because the goddamn general public, even the general public into underground music, can't seem to appreciate music without someone talking over it. That was my clever way of saying singing, but I'm talking over music this whole time. But then that's not how I'm expecting you to appreciate the music. Anyway, I know I'm posting this on a channel where I'm going to be talking to role players, and for some reason role players are the target market for all sorts of mood music that you're not supposed to pay any attention to because it's supposed to be background music while you're gaming. Why don't the people that make that shit have to hire security at their convention belts? I mean, they've got annoying, worthless products that make gaming and music and being next to them at conventions all worse. But I can tell you that some music is actually meant to be listened to, and this is the perfect album for such active listening. So, I can tell you that on the LOTFP US web store, if you use the coupon code AGONIA, AGONIA, all caps, you will get a €50 discount on orders of €100 or more. So that's that one. Now I will prepare. It's like 10 seconds of silence for some reason as I'm doing these CD changes I feel are like completely intolerable. So I'm going to be babbling nonsense at you, you know, even more nonsense. At least all the other nonsense is scripted, but yeah, this between CD nonsense. Okay. There we go. Number 9. Ferdilance, or as I've been calling it since I looked up the pronunciation on the internet before recording, Ferdilance. The album is Fires on the Mountainside. It's on Cruz del Sur Music. This album impressed me so much I made a whole adventure based on the cover art, which is 19th century painting. Also, this video is a day later, well, actually, This video is many days later because this is going to be true of everything. I listened to all the albums as I was writing about them. And I no shit just ended up sitting back with the headphones on, and I listened to this for 6 hours straight. That's 7 times I listened to this thing, front to back, in a row, lost most of a day. Worth it. Also, maybe a cope, because this is one of the last entries I'm writing, and I'm kind of stuck myself in a corner writing a bunch of stuff about all the other albums on the list. But for this one, all I have is, it's a Bathory-esque Viking album masquerading as a traditional metal release, and a lot of really cool stuff happens in the tension there. That's all I had to say about it, and then I thought maybe I could go into a mini thought piece about whether the Bathory Viking albums are just traditional heavy metal albums in the first place, and the only reason people look at them any different is that Bathory had that very extreme metal past. Then I'd have my ElfQuest, what if all the stars were suns epiphany. And then I just look like a right dick just thinking of all that at this late date. So it's better if I just skip the whole thing. So I just listened to it over and over and over and enjoyed every second of it because damn, it's a cool album. Now I'm distracting myself with the music because it's like, why am I talking when I can be listening to this? But I'm reminded about why I got out of the review writing game. Because you need to say something about a thing you just simply enjoy, but maybe you don't have a lot of commentary forthcoming. So you end up saying a lot of superfluous shit, which is what this whole video is going to be. Warning. And or analyzing what should be simply enjoyed. So I listened to the damn thing again. And again. And again. It's the next day as I'm writing this sentence, and I've listened to it 3 more times. Fuck it. So you might ask, if it's that infectious, why is it only number 9? Because it's like that with all these when I'm listening to them. An album that I'm satisfied listening to only once straight through in one go, it's not getting anywhere near this list. Plus, there's one minor nagging little thing about it which I'm not going to tell you because you wouldn't notice it. And if you did, you'd tell me, oh, but that's awesome actually. And then I'd have to hurt you. So, coupon code time. In the LOTFP EU web store, use coupon code LANCE, all caps, to get a €50 discount on orders of €100 or more. And that when I'm giving these numbers, these are just for the products. They don't count tax or shipping. So a €50 discount on orders of €100 or more in the EU web store. Got that through that fairly quickly. That first song's 13 minutes long, so you're probably very glad that I didn't just speak straight through for 13 minutes on one album. I wonder if a couple of these might get there. Number 8. Sarmat, Upgrade, on I Voidhanger Records. So, before you even get to the music, the band has deemed it necessary to put some political messages on the sleeve of their album. I'll read them to you here. Sarmat stands against Putin's criminal violence in Ukraine and his Russist system. Sarmat opposes the fence-sitting and enabling of Putin's threats to world peace by all complacent and collaborative parties and persons across the world, whomever and wherever they are. Free Palestine and Lebanon. Throw out your obscene Tesla already. Now, I can't much complain about political messaging when the very name of the band is a political comment in exactly the same way that Napalm Death's name is. But, you know me, I'm going to complain anyway. Because there's this music which feels through its artistry like it's transcendent and above earthly concerns, but the band wants me, as part of its artistic package, to be grounded in these real-world concerns. But to show you how isolated I am in my bubble, my first instinct reading this was, people who listen to this music can afford cars? But then I remember, oh yeah, that's just me, in a lifestyle where car ownership is a signal that they're in an entirely different social class than I am. I bet all the Americans watching just turn their heads sideways going, what do you mean? I mean, there's no vision of my life, even best case scenario. Even those few years where LOTFP was giving me like a comfortable middle class lifestyle, I just can't imagine that owning a car makes any financial sense. And even as a kid, I never bothered to get a real driver's license after I had my learner's permit. My mother told me how much insurance was going to cost and that I'd have to pay that. And I was like, oh, never mind then. Not to mention, God, when I had the learner's permit, just like white knuckle, I hated it. I hated it. So I never did get a real driver's license. And the idea of driving is just terrifying to me. It's like, let me get this straight. You want to put me in control of 2 tons of plastic and steel and make me responsible for my and everyone else's lives on the road? What are you, fucking nuts? And these guys, the band, wants me, in their jazz metal album, at least in the messaging on the sleeve, to care about specific car brands. I mean, obviously, I think that was a statement against Musk more than the cars, but I wonder, is this a real thing? Is Tesla ownership a real thing among these musicians' peer groups? And is this an honest plea to people who could respond to it? Or is it just virtue signaling? I mean, that's a real question. How many Tesla owners are they actually expecting to reach with this album? Anyone can have a position on Russia and Palestine, but the Tesla thing is a bit different. Anyway, they put that on the album sleeve, so commentary on it is completely relevant. Now, what to do about jazz metal? Metal, I've got 34 years of being into metal, 34 years under my belt. I've got thousands of albums on the shelves here. Thousands more I sold off before coming to Finland. 60 some odd issues of my own fanzine I did where I got on-the-job education about metal. And I've read many hundreds of issues of newsstand magazines and fanzines concerning metal. These numbers are not exaggerations. I know the ins and outs of so much metal, both the history and the bands, and how it's been talked about and categorized and interrogated and described through the decades. Less so more recently, since I'm not plugged into all the channels, but yeah, for all the times and everything was, yeah. Very useful knowledge. But jazz? I know jack and shit about. I've got some fusion albums, and a certain type of metal band is sometimes described as jazz-influenced. The only jazz person I've ever spent time with was a singer that recommended Julie London to me, and that's not the type of jazz that ever intersects with metal. I do know enough to know there are different types of jazz. Sarmat, in their biomaterial, emphasizes that jazz is not just an influence, but a core component of the band. But I can't, for the life of me, differentiate the jazz here from what I might otherwise call tech or prog. And I wonder if I would have ever thought of the word jazz if they or the label hadn't. But then I can't figure out really what differentiates Painkiller and Naked City, the John Zorn projects, from the early grind scene. I mean, surely it's not simply the presence of horns. I try to listen to straight jazz, but it's just not for me. It doesn't transport me anywhere. It's just like, oh yes, I can recognize they can play instruments. So I'm left trying to reverse engineer jazz from bands that I like that are said to have jazz influence. Like, can I piece it together from Ethel Duath and later Atheist? And is 5 the Hierophant actually integrating jazz, or is it just that they use a saxophone as a primary instrument? So here I am faffing about and stumbling through all the thoughts, trying to figure out why this isn't just a tech death album. Trying to not put too much weight on the fact that Sarmat and Painkiller and Naked City aren't on Metal Archives. But then neither are Sore Throat or Doom. Neither is Uriah Heep for that matter. So I'm reminded that genre isn't actually a real thing. It's just a label us monkey brains throw onto things so we don't have to think about them. And people disagree about what's what all the time. And I'm listening to Upgrade over and over, and as I'm writing, I listen to it over and over as I'm writing, and it's only 2 songs, 21 minutes long, so I guess now we can have an argument about what exactly album means. But they get to the part where it's just trumpet, drums, and bass, and my brain is just pointing and shouting, "Is that the jazz? Is it? Is that the jazz?" Like I'm going to get a treat if I correctly identify it. It's just that I don't like the idea of not being able to competently talk about it if I happen to run into one of the 3 other people who know about the band. And for some reason, maybe I'm chatting with them, when we're on the way to the bus stop after a gig, because of course they're taking the bus too, because they've thrown away their Tesla. Of course, now I'm going to get emails from people wanting to educate me about jazz, especially jazz that might relate to my interests, and yeah. That's why I'm displaying my ignorance on the subject in the way I am. That's how I learn, from having conversations with more knowledgeable people. All the private study in the world wouldn't, and hasn't in the past, meant shit for actually applying any knowledge. It has to come with interacting with people, which is very unfortunate for me, since interacting with people. Maybe that's why I haven't learned anything new in a fuck's age, But for some reason, if you just say, "Hey, I want to learn about this, please help," nobody gives a shit. You go ahead and display some ignorance online, people will fall all over themselves to tell you what you don't know, because then they get to feel superior. Anyway, regardless of what it is or isn't, I love listening to Upgrade. It has that free-flowing quality I love in music. It's varied in its textures and tones. And for the record, I mentioned I might call it tech death because the only vocals that appear for the small portion of the runtime, they're all death metal vocals, but this is mostly instrumental. But it feels like it's a final form of something. Death metal vocals. It feels like it's the final form of something special. It's not like they're trying to find something. It's like they found it. This is it. This is them. And most bands that are said to incorporate jazz are either pure chaos or alternate between extreme metal and lounge sections or just have a brass instrument squealing over things, and that's it. How this flows from more active to calm feels natural. I've never heard anything quite like this band. I mean, I'm hearing the echoes of fusion, but the fusion doesn't do this. And a lot of jazz metal doesn't do what they do. Sarmat. So I don't understand why or how this isn't on Metal Archives, because that's seen as the database encyclopedia of metal. But metal doesn't have to be the rigid shit that so much of it is. Sure, not every new permutation will be to my liking. Some will be for, type 1 metalhead fucks. And I'll explain the different types of metalhead in a bit. But some new forms would be for me. And those are going to be a lot more valuable than classic sound regurgitation number 35,346,473. So, yeah. That's Upgrade. Want to let you know about a coupon code for the EU web store. Coupon code UPGRADE. All caps. €100 discount on orders of €200 or more in the LOTFP EU web store. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, hope the natural light. Well, the natural light looked good in the first take. Decent anyway. So here we go. Here we go. Let's start further on. Number 7. Yeah. We've got, which way do I put this up? L'Impero delle Ombre. Oscarita. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce those words. Black Widow Records. There are these little pockets of metal that the analogy I use is like they're uncontacted tribes. They just exist in their own little bubbles and they don't seem to break out into the greater world. I don't know how that works these days, but piercing one of those bubbles makes me feel like a great explorer. And so many of the albums I end up getting out of them just sound strange for the fact that they and their creators don't seem to be in conversation with the greater worldwide scene. What's even more bizarre, now that I'm talking about Italy specifically, that's where this band is from, there seems to be one set of bands and record labels that are international in scope that do seem like they interact with and belong to the international scene. But there's a parallel scene, it seems to me, that doesn't seem to break containment. Like none of the people involved have the internet or something, and their influence and their intended reach are all just local. It's like I remember in the 90s when I started buying import records. And after that, with all the variety of sounds and bands that were available to me from that point, I thought how limited in the people the US were if they just bought what was available through the normal US business distribution channels. But in this day and age, when bands from Chile and Albania and Singapore sound similar, because of course they do, everything has the same access to everyone has the same access to everything, and trending worldwide is a thing on any scale. An insular environment produces work that just seems weird. It's off. It's different, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Of course, now that I like some of the stuff and I'm telling you all about some of it, am I breaking the Prime Directive? Am I just going to ruin everything? I don't know. Even the bands that do break containment are special. Think of the Italian power metal scene that came out of the 90s. Labyrinth, Eldritch, Rhapsody. This was markedly different than what was happening anywhere else. And then the more progressive extreme stuff. Novembre, Hortus Anime, Ethel Duath. Shit, this is more power metal again, but I remember Secret Sphere taking the stage at Prog Power USA one year. And those of us that weren't really interested are just hanging out in the lobby area. And people come out and start pulling us into the performance hall. It's like, look at these guys, look at them, what the hell are they doing? A lot of Italian metal, and I'm specifically thinking about Frozen Crown right now, a current rising name, with their squeaky clean, immaculately groomed power metal that's just cheesy as fuck. And now it's like, I'm sure I checked. When I wrote this, I remember checking, but now I've got doubts. It's like, oh shit, are they actually Italian? Fuck it. The point stands even if it's not Italy, because this is true in pockets everywhere. Anyway, Frozen Crown is a very squeaky clean, immaculately groomed power metal. When I say clean, it's far too clean. And it just comes across cheesy as fuck. And I think, about Italy and how so much of what comes out of Italy is something that is widely described as cheesy. It's cheesy as fuck. And then it's like, wait a second. And I think of the presentation of bands like Opera 9 and Death SS, or that lispy narrator that Rhapsody always used back in the day. Paul Chain's made-up language improvising his way through the records. There's something being lost in translation, I think. But the thing that makes it all weird the thing, what the cheesiness is just being so nakedly earnest and devoid of irony. And us, especially in the Anglosphere, or come from there anyway, can only interpret it as cheesy because we are so afraid of being sincere and just doing the thing without a whiff of self-consciousness. Italian horror operates the same way. A character named Dr. Freudstein? Wait, what? These guys had a stuntman dress up in a zombie costume and wrestle a real-life shark in the actual ocean? Why are they making unofficial sequels to foreign movies? This director did a point-of-view rape scene featuring his daughter as the victim, using his own hands as the attacker. What is wrong with all these people? And I think I'm having a breakthrough here, just thinking out loud, transcribing my thoughts in real time concerning all of this, realizing I've been looking at Italian output all wrong for 30 fucking years. I'm having a real breakthrough, and I'm suddenly more glad I decided to do this top 10 thing, just so I could reach this point. You know, writing is thinking in some ways, and I'm thinking things I wouldn't have thought without trying to write it down. I wouldn't have figured any of this out otherwise. So I'm sorry I gotta put this out on what's supposed to be an RPG channel. Not sorry. And I know it's gonna bore the shit out of you, but to me, this is big. So what's wrong with all these people, all these musicians and horror people in Italy? Nothing. Not a fucking thing is wrong with them. They just do all the things without self-doubt, no distance or irony or armor between themselves and the thing they're doing. It's like shame doesn't exist in the artistic realm in Italy. Or even beyond that. You know, I'm thinking of Cicciolina. There's a great purity in all that. And now I'm having a bit of pride in having a decent amount of Italian blood in my veins, and I think I'm going to treat myself to a giallo tonight. Fuck yeah. And while I'm talking about Italy, I just want to go on a tangent, because things are so brief that a tangent's not going to hurt anything. And mention my second wife took me to Rome in spring of 2009. I have 2 metal-related stories from that trip. Just by pure coincidence, I found out that Doomraiser was playing some club in Rome while we were in town, so we decided to go. Or, well, I decided we should go and she went along with it. We arrived way early for some reason, and while we were up in the bar waiting for the doors to open, and when they did open, we went downstairs to a basement performance area just like the places in Helsinki. We watched Herschel Gordon Lewis's Wizard of Gore on the TV in the bar. And when we did go downstairs and the place started filling up, my ex was surprised to find that the metalheads in Rome were just like the ones in Helsinki. It didn't occur to her that it would be like that. She thought, oh, Italy and Finland are much different, so the metalheads are going to be much different. No. In my experience, the 2 types of people that are the same worldwide are metalheads and role players. That's a hell of a coincidence for what I end up being involved in. Anyway. Story number 2 is the guy that runs Cruz del Sur Music took us out to dinner one night. And it was one of those cool access things where we were taken past the main dining area, through the kitchen, to a secret dining area where real people got to be away from the tourists. Well, the other tourists, I guess. I used to know people and have a life. So Black Widow Records, who released this album, doesn't seem to have broken containment too much. They've been around 36 years, and they specialize in prog rock, doom metal, proggy doom, and doomy prog. They do plenty of reissues, and none of it seems to be known anywhere outside Italy except idiots like me who dig and dig and dig for such things to fill the holes in their souls. And I swear this hole is CD size, and if I just find the right one, it'll fix me and I'll be able to cope with the world like a normal person. Maybe maybe Black Widow is better known in the prog world than the metal world. I don't know. I never much plugged into the prog community. As I said, I'm not plugged much into the metal community anymore. I just get all my news about bands from web store new release pages and record label YouTube channels. So it's just me on an island listening to stuff. It's nice, but not cognizant of social context for anything these days. And Black Widow releases don't seem to be getting into the distribution networks much of anywhere. At least not in metal. But everything they release just sounds so mystical. It seems that even their metal releases are just infused with the spirit of old Italian prog. And have you ever listened to old Italian prog? Not just Goblin. Goblin is certainly not an inferior example by any means. Whenever I order from Black Widow, I feel like I'm Cudgel trying to steal forbidden secrets from Ayakuno's mansion. That's how obscure this all feels. And one of those discoveries a while back was L'Impero delle Ombre, this band. That means Empire of Shadows. And I thought it was so great. And if you look at one of those old Ghost videos we did here on the channel, over 3 years ago now, I think, the one where I'm at my desk, I made sure their last album was on camera because apparently I thought that was a meaningful thing to do. Everything in that video was intentional. I don't normally have that stuff on my desk. So, this, Oscarita, however you say it, it's the next album, and the band leans more heavily on the doom side, but the prog surfaces enough that it's more than just touches of prog. And the whole thing is soaked in organ, and the album is just glorious. One of the songs, the one that started playing that I put on first, is Dagon. They've got another song called Il Gatto Nero with accompanying illustration of Edgar Allan Poe, next to the lyrics. So that's the vibe. But all the lyrics are in Italian, so I can't report anything precise. Well, there is a picture of Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner opposite a song called Lacrime nella pioggia. Tears in the rain is what that means. And then for some reason I'm wondering about the odds they cleared that photo properly. These things come to me. There's a graphic in the insert that's got their self-professed style of cemetery rock written on it in English. Now, I know what you might be thinking, that the singing in Italian thing explains being closed off from international awareness, but so many bands sing in their native language and still get around, especially in Europe, that can't be it. But the disconnect works to their advantage, because they're a doom band, but they don't sound like Sabbath or Candlemass or Trouble. If any of these songs appeared on any of those bands' albums, you'd think, well, that's fucking weird. Which, yes, good. If they were just another Candlemass clone, then maybe it would still be in my collection, and now I've got the hiccups. Great. But I've got too much Candlemass clones. They sound pleasant and cool when I'm listening to them, but then after that first listen that goes on the shelf, I never think about them again until their next album, where I hear the preview track. Oh, that's like Candlemass Doom. I love that sort of thing. And I buy the album and I listen to it, go, okay, cool, and it goes on the shelf, and I never listen to it again. So I've got whole discographies from bands that I've listened to each of the albums exactly one time. But these guys, personality, style, something that stands out from the whole rest of the world in the weird little genre mix they've decided to live in. I go back to their albums, and I expect this one will be the same. I mean, I've already listened to it a ton just recently because I'm writing this. So, there you go. I want to let you know about a coupon code now. For the LOTFP US web store, use coupon code WIDOW, all caps, and get a €100 discount on orders of €200 or more in the US web store. There we go. There we go, and then I got nothing specifically interesting to tell you during this transition, but for some... Oh, God, lawn maintenance outside. Wonder if you can hear that. I don't know. I can never tell anything. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Number 6. Mausoleum Gate. Space, Rituals, and Magic on Cruz del Sur Music. There's some cool shit happening here. I've been a fan of Mausoleum Gate for ages. Their last album had come out in 2017, and you know, both of their older albums were on deep, deep discount with the record label. I thought they must be done, and even if they weren't done, they couldn't possibly release a new album on the same label that's doing these deep discounts on their back catalog. Boy, was I wrong. Last year, not only does the label announce this album, but also the promotion invokes just the most obscure shit. For fans of Darkstar, Saracen, Dark Quarterer, Quartz, Angel Witch, and Magnum. And I'm thinking Sarcophagus should be in there, but I just might be making the Finnish plus Oregon associations more than I should, the band's Finnish. But it's like, holy shit, focusing on a narrow as shit niche, and I was so curious how long it would be until this album was in deep discount too. Not that I was waiting. I mean, I pre-ordered the day they announced the damn thing. And I checked before writing this. There are vinyl editions available, but all the CDs of all their albums are sold out from the label and the band's Bandcamp page, including the new one. Which is awesome. But they're from Kuopio. That's a 5-hour train ride from where I am here. So if they play their hometown, it's a bit inconvenient to go. But if they're playing some shows in this part of the country, which they are, when I'm in Gothenburg for GothCon next week, or next month, well, next week and next month, pissed about that. Been waiting forever to see these guys, and they're here when I'm out of the country. It must be a conspiracy. At this point, it's not even paranoia. I am absolutely convinced that Finnish promoters put on the best shows only when they know I'm not going to show up. It's like, oh, we got this cool show. We don't need Jim there, so we can not deal with his annoying ass. Here's a convince. Let's put the show on that date. He'll be gone. Fuck him. Anyway, metal is a beast that respects its past. You cannot be a metalhead just by liking whatever is big and hot right now. Seriously, success is viewed with suspicion because real metal is irrelevant to and a reaction against whatever the public zeitgeist is. So if a significant number of people are getting into a band, something must be wrong with them. And therefore, fans of only successful bands are seen as the undesirable and unserious assholes we all got into metal to get the fuck away from. But at the same time, we lament that our obscure favorites aren't getting the respect they deserve, and it's a great injustice of the world that they aren't more popular. Welcome to the mind of a metalhead. It's this desire to delve into the obscure and unappreciated to avoid the popular and now that allows the history of metal to never die and always be, immediately relevant. It's like metalheads don't stop listening to bands they liked 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just because there's something new. No. Old albums, even demos, are constantly being reissued, and efforts that were completely forgotten, obscured, and buried by time are given new time in the sun. This is great, because there is a 56-year history of metal, plus all the precursors to metal, that is completely accessible to anyone who wants to hear it, and what seems like even the most minor player may have their work echo through the decades. It's bad because of the same things that afflict TV and movies. Reformations, announcements, our first album in 30 years. You also get the phenomenon of teenagers forming bands that sound just like old bands. Teenagers of yesteryears forged new styles. Teenagers today just copy them. Yeah. And all the retro bands that are so self-consciously about recreating the past, and you have to wonder, why are you bothering when the old stuff is right there? But then it happens. It happens. A band or an album gets it so right that it immediately signals itself as plugging into some timeless essence, where you really believe they're not just intentionally pulling old influences, but have internalized them so completely that they just couldn't do something that sounds now if they wanted to. This feels like that, and it's why I appreciate not knowing musicians like I did in the old zine days. I get to romanticize their lives like this, and not have any experience of them as actual human beings with current human problems. With current day human problems. It does help, though, that a couple of the guys in this band have another project called Iron Griffin, which cements the idea that they're just musical spirits completely disconnected from modern experience. And that band, when the woman's singing, the material with the woman singer, it's even better than Mausoleum Gate, actually. And when I saw Iron Griffin a few years ago, I just wanted to give up my life and join the cult they obviously must have out in the countryside, just to work the fields for them every day, and every morning hoping that today's the day I get to drink the Kool-Aid they'd offer just to prove my devotion. And the painful thing about them is their recorded work doesn't compare to their live work. So go YouTube Iron Griffin and forget that the world exists just for a bit. And that's a bit awkward because I'm supposed to be talking up Mausoleum Gate right now. And all I can say about this album is that I've listened to it for hours and hours and hours and hours. And there are times that I've not been able to listen to it because I've been out of the house or with another person, that I resent not being able to listen to it. And I feel just like the people who grew up in the years and decades before I did, that would talk about they just go into their room and put the headphones on and just obliviate to their favorite album. Kind of like the cover of that one Marillion album. And I get to do that with a brand new album when I'm in my 50s and I'm stone cold sober. Fuck yeah. I can feel a certain judgment coming from you people with families and proper professions and financial security and like a real place in the world. But it was always put to me that I could have that or I could have this. And I can tell you the periods of time when I tried that to be a proper real person, it felt like a living nightmare. So you can keep real life. I've known enough people with divorces, people whose children have died, people who've gone through surprise layoffs, that I know this real life and the security that it feels like it provides isn't even real anyway. So you can have that, and I'll be here in this world of dreams and nightmares. Yeah. And now the awkward transition into commerce after that. I can tell you the coupon code that I'm putting with this album is for the US, LOTFP US web store. Coupon code GATE. 25% discount on all products in the US web store. Yeah. So that's that. Oh dear, yeah. So, before we go on to the next one, we're at the halfway point of the countdown. So let me explain something to you, those of you who are just humoring me here because you like the LOTFP books and you don't really give two shits about metal. I think there are 3 types of heavy metal fans. The first is the casual. Oh my god, did you see that electric callboy clip on TikTok? Wait, you like heavy metal too? Yeah, baby metal. Diggy diggy hole. Oh man, it's so cool. High five. That's a bit of a caricature, but only just. Type 2 and Type 3 metalheads think these people ruin everything and should be set on fire because they turn metal into a joke. Type 2 metalheads are the ones that are really serious about all the most brutal aspects of metal. The spikes, the studs, the addiction to several chemicals, occult tattoos just covering up way too much of their bodies. The kind of people that consider Satanism in metal to be literal, not metaphorical, not symbolic. People who consider keyboards to be a very, very gay instrument, just by their very nature. And are those swastikas? Fuck. Type 1 metalheads wonder why there aren't rules keeping Type 2s out of metal because they scare normal people away. And Type 3 metalheads just consider Type 2s a small price to pay for being able to not have anyone in the position to say what is allowed or not. And at least they take the metal seriously. The third type of metalhead is into the atmosphere and musicianship of the bands, and also are very concerned about tracking discographies and histories of subgenres and can compare production styles of different recording studios around the world. Type 1 and Type 2 metalheads think Type 3 metalheads should be set on fire because they're a bunch of fucking nerds who ruin everything. Take a wild guess which one of those I am and weigh all the commentary here appropriately. Yeah. So now we can go into backdoor countdown. So now we have Lichgate, Precipice on, Debemer Morty Productions. I guess how you say that? This is the entry that I'm writing last. Well, ended up being second to last because I thought of that Italian rant after I finished this. But I wrote this one last because I don't know what to say about it. I like it. I really, really like it. It's like, yeah, and more? So I decided to search around for reviews to see what other people have said about it. Maybe that'll inspire something. And oh God. I mean, oh God. People can't write. People cannot write. I mean, listen to this nonsense that I found on the Mystification webzine. Quote, "The hive mind's insatiable tunneling towards inefficiencies cannot possibly outpace the rot produced by the greater machine, no matter how Ouroboros the form taken by civilization becomes an entity of uniform obedience will always suffocate beneath the outcome. Given a view from the deeply bent spine of surreal Envision London, England-based avant-garde black/progressive metal quartet Lichgate arrived beyond the crest of many years with a vision of tormented liberation on this accomplished fourth full-length album. Despite its time-emboldened density of razor precision statement, Precipice speaks clearly. Somebody's speaking clearly in all this, at least. Deliberately through its arc as a about 48-minute ordeal marked by eldritch tension and beauteous gray-glowing contemplation. Though you'll no doubt immediately recognize their work by its already well-established traits, the long-awaited between releases appears to have granted this record a thrillingly repeatable density, finally a comma, a compelling realm of its own to explore beyond past accomplishments." Unquote. There's not a big chance, but there is a non-zero chance that the person that wrote this is one of my fans. So please, with all due respect, meaning absolutely none for that prose, stop. Please. Please, 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 please. Just stop. And that's the more egregious example, but every single review I was able to pull up from a Google search is a similar stream of nonsense. I said I don't know what to say about this record, and quite obviously neither does anybody else. People wanting to do written record reviews, and I was never immune to this, want to come up with prose that feels like the music. And it just comes out as laughable gibberish. Free association word salad. It's good. that this music overwhelms us and turns our mind to jelly. That's why it's good. But if you try to read about this music, either in reviews or in the promo text that record labels write to make metal album 32,437 stand out from the other 32,436 metal albums coming out this year, the only impression we can take away from all of this, and not specifically just talking about writing about this album or band, but I mean metal writing in general, the only impression anyone can take away from it is that everyone who likes this music is a jelly-brained fuckwit who can't think, let alone write. Wanting to write about music, wanting to tell you about these albums, it's about the person communicating. It's not so much about the music. This present effort absolutely included. But we've all got the idea of what a record review should be. So we make everyone else suffer our dancing about architecture. But this music, specifically this music, hidden, obscure, unknown, creates these feelings within us, and we both want to express those feelings in some way and let you know about the wonderful, marvelous, amazing, unbelievably good works of fucking art that put those feelings into us in the first place. And here we are. Here we are. And we'll say we're doing it to support the band, but really, enjoying intensely unpopular musical forms is really fucking lonely. And the other people we know that like this music, they're just unpleasantly weird. So please, let me know I'm not actually a miserable troglodyte loser freak by validating the feelings this music puts into me, by acknowledging that yes, you too are inspired by feelings, inspired to feelings by this music. And then there's music reviews on YouTube. And I look at those and I feel like we've all had collective strokes. People on YouTube actually review records. They sit there and tell you about the records. They tell you about the sounds. Well, most often they don't play any of the music because of YouTube copyright and monetization rules. While more often than not when they do this, the actual album they're talking about is one of the recommended sidebar links, whichever side it's going to end up on. You know, the music they're talking about is one of the recommended links in the sidebar. And it's like, okay, why does anyone listen to someone's opinion about an album for 10 minutes when they could listen to 10 minutes of the album? Any serious YouTube music review would just be your favorite tastemaker silently pointing to link boxes. And then my favorite genre of music YouTuber are the panels where people on Zoom talk about records. I feel good for them, really, that they have some people to substantively talk to about this music. And that actually makes me intensely jealous. But the last thing I ever want to do is watch them doing it. I really do think those things function for the people doing it and not any potential audience. Hey, I get to talk obsessively about this thing I obsess over in a social context where it's acceptable to do so with one or more willing participants, and I don't have to feel bad for making anyone's eyes glaze over as they politely wait for me to shut up. And because it's a show, I get to do it on a regular schedule. Feeling that music is important for its own sake rather than just something that fills background silence or being the soundtrack to your life, it really does a number on a human being. I mean, it does. Soulless people who don't have the capacity to take this shit seriously, they really do have better lives. If you want to hear people who take music seriously talk seriously about music and have it be neither a bore nor ever have to worry that they'll be talking about embarrassing shit, I recommend the Radical Research Podcast on their own website, not YouTube. Jeff Wagner and Hunter Ginn are good and knowledgeable and pleasant people with superior musical taste. Oh, yeah. Lichgate? Precipice? It's great. It's a concept album based on an old story I'd never heard of and know nothing about and frankly won't be checking out. But it's a well put together, arty death metal of a sort I find agreeable. And it's really the lead guitar work. It just tickles my neurons in a way that makes me feel good, and I listen to this album a lot to get that feeling. I mean, I'm sure the band would pull their hair out seeing all their hard work reduced to that, but whatever gets me through the day. So yeah, in the LOTFP EU web store, use coupon code Precipice, all caps, to get a 25% discount on all products in the EU web store on the order. Yeah. Ho ho ho. Ho 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 ho. Read the fucking thing already. Okay. Number 4, Bina. Bina, I'll go with Bina. The album's called Enkos. It's on Osmos Productions. Every kind of music has its tropes and its cliches. It signals that it is one thing and not another. An independent record label is like that too, generally reflecting the tastes of the owner more than a professional and diversified business strategy. And these days, Osmos is mostly a very straightforward underground extreme metal label with a legendary 35-year history. Seriously, look at their early 90s releases. It looks like an all-star lineup. But it's also got a lot of noisy nonsense, and you have to check the lyrics of anybody on their label you're not familiar with, since every so often they release something that's, how do I put it, not kosher. Let's put it that way. And it's at once refreshing that someone gets away with not caring, but it's annoying because then the responsibility to avoid that is on me, the consumer. How inconvenient. I mean, I'm not militant about these sort of things. I don't care about associations. Oh, this guy's in a band with that guy. Or, I don't much care about artists' personal beliefs. But I do want to make sure the work itself is not promoting something that I consider completely repugnant real-world politics. But then there are those of you out there that will think I should be more militant, but that would mean I wouldn't have found Bina because they're on a label that has some of this other stuff. And if you want me to not have found Bina, well, you know what they say. This is the thing they say all over the internet. If 10 people are sitting at a table and one of them is a tedious nag, the other 9 should put their political differences aside and beat the shit out of the nag who tries to dictate who other people are allowed to talk to, listen to, or sit with. What I don't go to Osmos for are genuine emotional expressions in textured music. So last October, when they released the first preview track for this album, and it was 23 minutes long, I was like, wait, what? The song was excellent, a real journey of dark and cavernous death metal, punctuated with occasional pushes of speed and calm. Then I found out the album is just 2 songs, the 23-minute song and a 20-minute song, and I went ahead and pre-ordered without the lyrics being available because that's not the sort of thing meatheads do. And it's on the list, so obviously that purchase paid off handsomely. 2 massive compositions, and calling them mere songs just seems to be inadequate considering their lengths and complete lack of verses or choruses. These compositions just move ever forward. If I had to describe the sound, this is going to be inadequate, and it seems no matter what portion of it's going to be playing as I'm saying it, it's going to seem bad, but the impression I get overall is like 4th Crusade era bolt thrower with psychedelic touches. Sorta. But it's not a casual listen. That's for sure. And it wasn't until the album had arrived and I listened to it a few times on the stereo that I bothered to sit back with the headphones and read along with the lyrics in the booklet. And it's like, oh, someone died. Someone close to the lyric writer died. And it's obviously real feelings. It's not talking about anything fictional. The lyrics are about dealing with a dying person and the aftermath. And it's real. And it's raw. It's definitely not what I expected from an Osmos release. I gave myself a pat on the back for still paying attention to what Osmos is releasing. I'll tell you that. And I have to wonder what Osmos thought when they received the album at first. It's like, oh shit, real emotion. This doesn't fit our aesthetic at all. No, I'm just being mean, but... And I did a bit of research. It's like, yeah, one of the band members lost his father to cancer as they were trying to figure out what the lyrics were going to be for their new album. So, yeah. Death metal indeed. So, yeah, coupon code this time for the LOTFP US web store. Promo code OSMOS, OSMOSE, all caps. Free shipping on a US web store order. Yeah. Oh, home stretch now. Oh yeah, home stretch now. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Oh yeah. Number 3, we're in the home stretch. Hex Process, Beyond What Eyes Can See on Transcending Obscurity Records. And that's a beautiful album cover. I have to say, God in hell do I love heavy metal. The absolute madness, the insanity of what people do that makes absolutely no logical sense, and yet here it is, and how glorious it is. What we have here is a Florida band playing early 90s style Florida death metal, but the songs are all around 10 minutes long, and the songs all have these labyrinthine prog song structures, but there's no prog music in here. It's like, what? My gut instinct is just, oh, these poor maniacs. Because who's gonna listen to this? Besides me, of course, I'm the target audience, but selling one copy of an album probably isn't enough. And you know, I know the band formed the year after Blood Incantation's Hidden History of the Human Race came out, and the main guy was 17 years old when the band was formed. But I predict Blood Incantation is going to be a once-in-a-generation Opethy kind of breakthrough. There's not going to be a whole bunch of bands following them into that kind of popularity. And Hex Process's 2 albums now have just been on the smallest record labels. The first one's on Witch's Brew. I got it a few months after it came out. Got this one right away once I saw it announced. And like, Transcending Obscurity is a great name for a label, and it is a great label, but has anyone on the label actually done that yet? Transcended obscurity. This sort of situation is true for most metal musicians. All the thousands of albums being made each year just dumped into the world, and effectively nobody's ever going to hear them. Metal Archives lists 9,073 full-length metal studio albums released in 2025, not counting EPs, live albums, demos, whatever. Just full-length studio albums. And the Archives has a notoriously rigid definition of what counts as metal, so the real number is far greater than that. Even if we assume that each of those 9,073 releases is the absolute pinnacle of the metal art, and they're not, but let's pretend they are, there just aren't enough people, or hours in a day, week, or life for all these things to find audiences. And remember, they're also competing with every other album that was released prior to 2025, every album that's going to be released after 2025, Plus, they're competing with every other style of music that there is, every other kind of entertainment that there is, and every other demand for any of our times that exist in our lives. That's what the band's competing with just to be listened to. You really have to do it for the love of the game, or you are simply a fool. Or maybe the act of being in a metal band is as real-world nihilistic as most metal lyrics are. But I got some great news. Hex Process, as evidenced by their 2 albums, and certainly this new one, seem to be a product of nothing but love and great craft. There are riffs and riffs for days, or, if you like, an entire landscape of riffs just reaching all the way to the horizon, just flowing into each other and taking you on a great journey. I love this album to absolute bits. It's just metal, front to back. It's like all these proggy death metal bands, just with the proggy removed. It's like a celebration of the musical potential of metal while also planting its flag for metal as being enough in and of itself. And it rides that Goldilocks line of not being too abrasive and obnoxious, and not being too pretentious or weak and wimpy. It's the same with the vocals and lyrics. 100% death metal vocals simply add another texture to the work, rather than doing the "pay attention to me, there's frontman stuff going on here." And I don't pay much attention to the lyrics of metal albums these days because... shut the fuck up. But the fatigue with the world and with existence is so spot on here and shows a maturity and awareness that a 21, 22-year-old guy, which is how old he was when this album was made, he shouldn't yet have. But when I'm an old guy, you know, any old guy, any old person looking at a young person that's figured things out a little too soon, we get to have a certain bit of revenge on them. Because from me to you, Sonny, I can tell you, it gets no better. People always come up with new ways to make life more stupid and more difficult than it has to be, and people only seldom fix existing problems. And another note, I haven't read a better ode to Satan in lyrics since Havioth. And Havioth's album came out before this guy was born. I was a full adult, looking forward to that album, and well pleased when I got it. And now referencing it, there's people making excellent albums that were born after. I hate being old. Every so often an album comes around that is just so perfect and complete in and of itself, it just feels like it should be the template, the standard, the starting point for what anyone else does. Every other album on this list has some quirk, some risk to it, where even though I'm feeling them, I can understand why someone else wouldn't. This one, though, if you don't like this one, I dare say you don't like metal at all. And really, you need to get the fuck off my planet. We've got a coupon code here now for the EU web store, the LOTFP EU web store. Coupon code OBSCURITY, all caps, free shipping on an order from the EU web store. Yeah. Yeah, this is on Transcending Obscurity, which puts all those coupon codes in, and they always you know, they put a sticker in with everything they send out. And then also got a little card here, you know, Hex Process, hand numbered Digipack CD, copy number 187 out of 500. So there's always stuff falling out of these when you open them. And here we are. Yeah, start there, why not? So, Number 2. Oh, yeah. Are you playing? Yeah, there we go. Number 2. Flesh Vessel. Obstinacy. Sisyphean Dreams Unfolded. On Voidhanger Records. This band is described by the label as avant-garde death metal experimentalists, and by themselves as avant-garde extreme metal. And I can't help but think, what the fuck are you people talking about? Into the Pandemonium was released in 1987. That was doing things that had never been done before. That's an avant-garde, that's an avant-garde band. Celtic Frost. And you have to remember, 1993, Cynic, Death, Pestilence, Atheist, Demilich, Believer, etc. ad infinitum. That's already happened. And I've got all those Misanthropy records and all those early The End Records releases. They're already on my shelf. I have Devil Doll albums. There's no element of this album that wasn't established in metal or circulated in metal circles 30 years and more ago. So how can it be avant-garde? Let's just be honest about what this is. It's a metal album. It continues the long tradition of a certain type of metal band, integrating outside musical influences and progressive song structures as it's been done 1,000 times before. Done by people, and here is done by people who are a little too clever and a little too technically proficient for their own good. Yeah. So now, you, the common person, thinks I've just been bitching and moaning about this band. But I goddamn promise you, there's a certain breed of listener who's already been dashing breathlessly to search for Flesh Vessel in YouTube or Spotify or whatever, because if they live up to even the tiniest degree of what I've just said about them, those listeners are going to be having just the best week. They are. They're going to be having just the best week. You're welcome. That's a record review. Yeah. Coupon code for the LOTFP US web store. Use coupon code UNFOLDED, all caps. You get a 50% discount on all products in that order. Unfolded. I'm going to get a nasty email from someone about that last one, aren't I? Okay. Here we go. I got a specific song I want to start this one at. Come on, read the fucking thing. Okay. We are finally at number 1. The number 1 album of 2025 is Sleep Paralysis, self-titled album on Voidhanger Records. Music is personal. Somehow, some way, as I've been thinking of how to talk in different ways about a number of albums that have similar characteristics, and specifically why this might be number 1, it comes down to the fact that this album best represents how it feels in my head all the time. I feel like this sounds 24/7. It reflects my inner state more accurately than any album I have ever heard. I mean, it's not a complete one-to-one match in the lyrics. For example, I don't suffer from imposter syndrome, and I can't. And my instinct is to think of people talking about imposter syndrome. It's like, that's your mind telling you you're going down the wrong path. But even if the particulars of some of the words differ, the chaos and the dysfunction of the whole thing just feels very me. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sleep, I'm wearing their shirt. Sleep Paralysis. So it's like the song we're hearing here, Stress. it's so spot on. It's like 100%. There's no distance between me and this song at all. It's like some albums inspire me, some albums make me feel things, some albums are just impressive to experience. And this album is just so, basically it's just a mirror. You know, and particularly normal or disturbing, depending on how objective I'm being, it's how even the calmer sections are just anxiety-inducing. You can't ever just enjoy the calm sections because you know that complete chaos is always around the corner. It's not, it's that in hindsight, the calm, it wasn't ever just really peace. There's never peace. There's just not being aware of how bad everything is and how every action taken when things seem okay lead into, oftentimes cause, the chaos that follows. Maybe I'm talking about the album, maybe I'm talking about my life, you know. I try to tell myself there are 100 reasons this cannot be the #1 album of the year. Oh, it's a one-man band. Oh, the drums are programmed and blah, 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 blah. But what it actually is invalidates my every complaint. I don't know if anyone else will give a shit. Apparently not many people do, since I read that the CD here is a limited edition of 200 copies, and it still isn't sold out over a year later. You all can change that. Tell them I sent you. But this isn't a top 10 albums of 2025 that I think you'll like. This is a top 10 albums of 2025 that I think are best. So, yeah. And I'll just leave this by noting that this album is very similar in feel and meaning to Dawnbringer's 2006 album In Sickness and in Dreams, and that also has my highest recommendation. And that comparison actually fills me with some hope, because even though Dawnbringer was a one-man band with guests, they did put a lineup together to tour, and I got to see them in Helsinki years ago, but so someday sleep paralysis, someday. So in the EU web store, LOTFP EU web store, use promo code paralysis, all caps, for a 50% discount on all products in the order. So, that was the best, that was the best of 2025. Apologies to all the great albums, and there were many, that didn't understand me enough to make it onto this list. And if any of this talk has been at all interesting to you, then you really do need to get the music of Erika Zahn for your collection and your game if you haven't already. It's the official Bard class for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It'll work with any game that's got hit points and 6 ability scores and classes and levels. And it will be to your game what all these albums are to your ears. So, thank you for your attention. I hope you attack the hell out of those store discount codes, and I hope you go for grabbing the Bandcamp codes too. This took so many more days than I thought it would when I had other things to be working on, so I didn't know when I sat down to do this that I'd go full storytelling mode on all these reviews. So I hope you all respond to the incentives. Please. That's what's known in the business as a sales pitch. But yeah, enjoy your gaming, enjoy your metal, enjoy everything really. Just enjoy.